David Chen stepped out of his black BMW and looked up at his massive house in the heart of New York City. The building stood tall like a giant among the other homes on the street. 25 floors of glass and steel that cost him more money than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. But as he walked through the heavy front door, the familiar feeling hit him again. The house felt empty, cold, and way too quiet. His expensive leather shoes clicked against the marble floor as he made his way to the elevator. The sound echoed through the huge entrance hall, bouncing off walls decorated with paintings that cost more than most people's cars. David had built his tech company from nothing, starting in a tiny garage 15 years ago. Now at 42, he was worth over $50 million. He had everything money could buy, but somehow it never felt like enough. The elevator carried him to the 15th floor where his home office waited. As the doors opened, he could see the city lights twinkling below through the floor-to-ceiling windows. New York looked beautiful from up here, all bright and alive. But inside his house, everything felt dead. David loosened his tie and sat down at his desk. The computer screen showed dozens of emails waiting for him. More meetings, more deals, more money to be made. He had learned long ago that keeping busy was the best way to avoid thinking about the things that hurt too much to remember. 3 years ago, his life had been different. His wife Anna used to fill this house with warmth and laughter. She would cook dinner every night even though they could afford the best chefs in the city. She said home-cooked meals tasted better because they were made with love. David used to think that was silly, but now he would give anything to taste one of her simple pasta dishes again. Anna had died in a car accident on a rainy Tuesday morning. She was driving to pick up their 9-year-old daughter Lily from a doctor's appointment when a drunk driver ran a red light. The crash changed everything. Anna died instantly, and Lily's injuries left her unable to walk. The doctors said she would need a wheelchair for the rest of her life. After the accident, David threw himself into work even more than before. He told himself he was doing it for Lily, to make sure she had the best medical care money could buy. He hired the most expensive doctors, bought the latest equipment, and turned one of the rooms into a perfect medical facility. Everything Lily could possibly need was right there in their home. But David couldn't bring himself to spend much time with his daughter. Every time he looked at her, he saw Anna's eyes and Anna's smile. It hurt too much, and seeing Lily in that wheelchair reminded him of that terrible day when everything fell apart. So he hired nurses and caregivers to take care of her, while he buried himself in business deals and board meetings. Lily was now 12 years old, and David realized with a pang of guilt that he barely knew who she had become. He knew her medical schedule by heart because he reviewed the reports every week. He knew exactly what medicines she took and when she took them. He knew how her physical therapy was going and what her test scores looked like. But he didn't know what made her laugh anymore, or what her dreams were, or even what her favorite color was these days. Their conversations had become short and awkward. David would stop by her room every morning before work, and every evening when he got home. "How are you feeling today?" he would ask. "Fine, Dad," she would answer, barely looking up from whatever book or tablet she was reading. Then he would tell her to let the nurses know if she needed anything, and that would be it. Sometimes these conversations lasted less than 2 minutes. David had convinced himself that this was enough. He was providing for her, wasn't he? She had everything she could want. The best education money could buy, with private tutors coming to the house every day, the latest technology to help her move around and communicate, beautiful clothes, expensive toys, access to any entertainment she wanted. What more could a child need? But deep down, David knew he was lying to himself. He had seen other fathers with disabled children who seemed happy and close with their kids. He had watched them at the hospital during Lily's early appointments, before he started sending the nurses instead. Those fathers would laugh with their children, play games, tell jokes. Their kids would light up when they saw their dads coming. Lily never lit up when she saw David. She was polite and respectful, but there was no joy in her eyes when he entered the room. Sometimes David caught her staring out the window with a sad expression that broke his heart. But instead of going to her and asking what was wrong, he would tell himself that the sadness was just part of her condition, and that the doctors and therapists would help her deal with it. David's house had 15 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a swimming pool, a home theater, and a library that most universities would envy. But the only sounds that filled it were the quiet footsteps of the staff he hired to keep everything running smoothly. There was Mrs. Rodriguez, the head housekeeper who managed all the cleaning staff. There was Chef Laurent, who prepared elaborate meals that David usually ate alone while reading business reports. There were security guards, gardeners, and maintenance people who kept everything perfect. 6 months ago, David had hired a new maid named Maria Santos. She was different from the other staff members. While everyone else was very professional and formal, Maria had a warmth about her that reminded David of his own grandmother. She was about 45 years old with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She never said much to David, just nodded politely and went about her work. But sometimes he caught her humming softly as she cleaned, and it made the house feel a little less empty. David noticed that Maria always seemed to take extra time when she cleaned near Lily's room. Sometimes he would see her coming out of that area of the house with a small smile on her face. He never asked why, though. He figured she was just being thorough with her work. As David sat at his desk that evening, surrounded by reports and contracts, he realized how tired he was of this routine. Every day was exactly the same. Work, eat dinner alone, check on Lily for 2 minutes, then back to work until bedtime. He had built an empire, but what was the point if he had no one to share it with? He had saved his daughter's life with the best medical care money could buy. But had he saved what made life worth living? The house felt especially quiet tonight, and David found himself wishing for some sign of life somewhere in all these empty rooms. David stared at the computer screen, but the numbers on his financial reports might as well have been written in a foreign language. His mind kept wandering tonight, which was unusual for him. Normally, work was his escape from everything else. When he was analyzing market trends or planning new product launches, he could forget about the empty house around him and the guilt that followed him like a shadow. He reached for his coffee cup and realized it was empty. The cold ceramic reminded him that he had been sitting here for over 2 hours without moving. His neck ached from leaning forward and his eyes burned from staring at the bright screen in the dim room. David pushed his chair back and stretched, looking out at the city lights below. Even at 9:30 at night, New York was alive with movement and energy. Cars moved like tiny glowing ants along the streets, and he could see people walking on the sidewalks, probably heading home to families who were waiting for them. David envied those people. They probably had normal problems like helping their kids with homework or deciding what to watch on television together. Simple, everyday moments that he had taken for granted when Anna was alive. Back then, their house had been full of ordinary sounds. The television playing in the living room, Anna singing while she cooked dinner, Lily practicing piano in the music room they had set up for her. The piano was still there, covered with a white sheet like furniture in an abandoned house. David hadn't heard music in this place for 3 years. The silence had become so normal that he barely noticed it anymore. Sometimes he even wore headphones while working, not because he wanted to listen to anything, but because the complete quiet made him feel like he was trapped inside his own head. David walked to the small refrigerator in the corner of his office and grabbed a bottle of water. As he opened it, he thought about Lily's dinner. Chef Laurent always prepared something special for her, following the nutritionist's guidelines exactly. The food was healthy and perfectly prepared, but David wondered if his daughter ever missed the simple grilled cheese sandwiches Anna used to make when Lily was feeling sick or sad. He was about to sit back down when he heard something that made him freeze with the water bottle halfway to his lips. At first he thought he was imagining it, because it had been so long since he had heard that sound in this house. But there it was again, floating down from somewhere upstairs. Laughter. Real, genuine, joyful laughter, and it was coming from Lily. David set the water bottle down with shaking hands. His heart started beating faster as he listened more carefully. Yes, it was definitely his daughter's voice, but it sounded nothing like the polite, quiet responses he had grown used to hearing during their brief daily conversations. This was the sound of pure happiness, the kind of laughter that comes from deep in your belly when something is truly funny or wonderful. He hadn't heard Lily laugh like this since before the accident. Back then, she used to giggle at silly jokes and laugh so hard at funny movies that she would get hiccups. Anna used to say that Lily's laughter was the most beautiful sound in the world, better than any symphony or song on the radio. David had agreed, but he had never really appreciated how right Anna was until that sound disappeared from their lives. For a moment, David just stood there listening, afraid that if he moved, the laughter would stop and he would realize he had been imagining it. But it continued, joined now by what sounded like music. Not the classical music that Lily's tutors sometimes played during her lessons, but something with a rhythm that made you want to move, something happy and alive. David walked quietly to his office door and opened it slowly. The sound was clearer now, definitely coming from upstairs. It seemed to be coming from the direction of Lily's room, or maybe the playroom next to it. The playroom that David had spent $50,000 decorating with the help of child development experts, but rarely visited because seeing it reminded him of all the normal childhood experiences Lily would never have. He stepped into the hallway, moving as quietly as possible. His expensive shoes, which usually clicked loudly on the marble floors, made almost no sound on the thick carpet that covered this part of the house. David realized he was holding his breath as he walked toward the elevator. The laughter continued, and now he could hear another voice mixed in with Lily's. A woman's voice, speaking in what sounded like Spanish but in a tone so warm and gentle that it made David's chest feel tight. The elevator ride to Lily's floor felt like it took forever. David's mind was racing with questions and possibilities. Who was up there with his daughter? It had to be one of the staff members, but which one? And what were they doing that was making Lily so happy? He tried to remember the last time he had heard his daughter laugh, really laugh, and realized with a sick feeling that it might have been over a year ago. As the elevator doors opened, the sound became even clearer. It was definitely coming from the playroom, and David could now hear that the music had a Latin rhythm to it. Someone was speaking to Lily in both English and Spanish, and Lily was responding with more words than David had heard from her in months. Her voice was bright and excited, asking questions and making comments like any normal 12-year-old girl. David felt tears starting to form in his eyes as he listened to his daughter sound so alive and engaged. When was the last time he had heard her voice carry such emotion? During their brief conversations, Lily always sounded tired or distant, like she was just going through the motions of talking to him because she knew she was supposed to. But this was different. This was the voice of a child who was truly happy in that moment. He walked slowly down the hallway, his heart pounding harder with each step. The carpet muffled his footsteps, so whoever was in the playroom with Lily had no idea he was coming. David was grateful for that, because he wanted to understand what was happening before he interrupted it. Something magical was going on in that room, and he was afraid that his presence might break the spell. As he got closer, he could hear individual words more clearly. Someone was calling Lily beautiful and graceful, speaking to her like she was a precious treasure rather than a medical case to be managed. David realized that no one had spoken to his daughter that way since Anna died. All the doctors and nurses and therapists were kind, but they were professional. They talked about Lily's condition and her progress and her needs. But none of them talked to her like she was just a wonderful young girl deserving of joy and celebration. David reached the door to the playroom, which was slightly open. Light spilled out into the hallway along with the music and laughter that had drawn him here. His hand trembled as he reached toward the door handle, knowing that whatever he was about to see would change everything. David's hand froze just inches from the door handle. Through the small gap he could see movement and color, but his brain couldn't quite process what his eyes were showing him. He leaned forward carefully, trying to get a better view without pushing the door open and making noise. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Maria, the quiet maid he had hired 6 months ago, was standing in the middle of the playroom holding Lily's hands. But this wasn't some medical exercise or therapy session. Maria was moving in a gentle circle, and Lily's wheelchair was turning with her, spinning slowly like they were dancing together. Lily's face was absolutely glowing with happiness, her eyes bright and alive in a way David hadn't seen in years. Maria was humming along to the music playing from a small speaker on the table. The song was in Spanish with a rhythm that made you want to move your body. But what shocked David most was how natural this looked. Maria wasn't treating Lily like a fragile patient who might break. She was treating her like a dance partner, like a friend, like a normal 12-year-old girl who deserved to feel beautiful and graceful. Eres tan hermosa cuando sonríes, Maria said softly, which David's limited Spanish told him meant something about Lily being beautiful when she smiled. And Lily was smiling, the biggest, most genuine smile David had seen on his daughter's face in 3 long years. "Can we spin faster?" Lily asked, her voice full of excitement. David's heart nearly stopped. When was the last time he had heard his daughter ask for anything with such enthusiasm? Usually Lily spoke in quiet, careful words like she was afraid of asking for too much or bothering anyone. Of course, mi amor, Maria replied, picking up the pace slightly. She guided Lily's wheelchair in wider circles now, and both of them were laughing as the chair turned. Lily had her arms stretched out to her sides like she was flying. Her long, dark hair moved in the air around her face, and for a moment, she looked exactly like Anna used to look when they danced in their old apartment before David became wealthy. David pressed his back against the hallway wall, his legs suddenly feeling weak. He watched as Maria came to a gentle stop and knelt down beside Lily's chair so they were at the same eye level. This simple action said everything about who Maria was as a person. So many adults talked down to Lily, literally looking down at her because she was in a wheelchair. But Maria made sure they were equals face to face, person to person. "You are the most graceful dancer I have ever seen," Maria told Lily in English, her accent giving the words a musical quality. "Your mama, she must have been a wonderful dancer too, no?" "I can see it in the way you move." David's eyes filled with tears. No one had mentioned Anna to Lily in months, maybe years. Everyone seemed to think that talking about her mother would make Lily sad. So they avoided the subject completely. But Maria spoke about Anna naturally, like she was still part of their lives, like it was okay to remember her with joy instead of only sadness. "Mom used to dance with me when I was little," Lily said, her voice getting softer but not sad. "Before the accident, she said dancing was like flying without leaving the ground." "She was very smart, your mama," Maria replied, smoothing a strand of hair away from Lily's face with such tenderness that David felt his chest tighten. "And you know what? You can still fly. In here," she pointed to Lily's heart, "and in here," she pointed to Lily's head. "You can fly anywhere you want to go." David watched his daughter nod seriously, like Maria had just shared the most important secret in the world. Then Lily looked up with curious eyes and asked, "Maria, do you have children?" "I have 3, Maria answered with pride. 2 boys and 1 girl. My daughter is 15 now, but when she was your age, we used to dance in our tiny kitchen while I cooked dinner. There was barely enough room for both of us, but we didn't care. Dancing isn't about having space. It's about having joy." "I wish my dad would dance with me," Lily said quietly, and David felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "But I think he's too busy, and probably too sad. He gets this look on his face when he sees me, like he's remembering something that hurts." David wanted to run into the room and tell his daughter that she was wrong, that he wasn't too busy or too sad to spend time with her. But he couldn't move, couldn't speak, because he knew that everything Lily had said was absolutely true. He did look at her and remember the accident. He did think about Anna every time he saw Lily's eyes, and he had used being busy as an excuse to avoid dealing with those painful feelings. Sometimes grown-ups forget how to be happy when something very sad happens to them, Maria explained gently. They think that being sad all the time is a way to show love for the person they lost. But you know what I think? I think the people we love want us to find ways to be happy again. They want us to dance and laugh and live good lives. "Do you really think Mom would want me to be happy?" Lily asked. "Oh, mi niña, I am sure of it," Maria said, taking Lily's hands again. "Mothers want their children to shine like stars, not hide like they are ashamed of their light." David slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, overwhelmed by what he was hearing. Maria had said in 5 minutes what teams of expensive therapists had been trying to tell Lily for years. But more than that, she was treating Lily like a whole person, not like a collection of medical problems that needed to be fixed. Through the door, David could see Maria stand up and change the music to something slower and more gentle. "Would you like to try a different kind of dance?" she asked Lily. "Yes," Lily replied immediately, her voice full of trust. Maria moved behind Lily's wheelchair and began pushing it in smooth, flowing movements around the room. But she wasn't just pushing randomly. She was creating patterns, making the chair glide and turn in ways that looked like a beautiful slow dance. Lily closed her eyes and tilted her head back, completely relaxed and trusting. "This is how the clouds dance in the sky," Maria said softly as she guided the chair in gentle curves, slow and peaceful, like they have all the time in the world. David watched his daughter's face transform with wonder and peace. This was the child he remembered from before everything went wrong. This was Lily without fear, without sadness, without the weight of everyone else's pity and worry. This was his daughter simply being a kid who loved to move and laugh and dream. For the first time in 3 years, David saw Lily not as his disabled daughter who needed constant care, but as a beautiful whole person who happened to use a wheelchair. The difference in perspective hit him like lightning, changing everything he thought he knew about his child and himself. David remained frozen on the hallway floor, his expensive suit wrinkled against the wall as he continued to watch through the crack in the door. What he was seeing challenged everything he thought he knew about his daughter's life and his role as her father. The music had changed to something softer now, and Maria was showing Lily how to move her arms in graceful patterns while her wheelchair swayed gently back and forth. "Feel the music in your heart first," Maria was saying. "Then let your body follow. It doesn't matter how your body moves, what matters is that you feel the joy inside." Lily nodded seriously and closed her eyes, moving her arms slowly to match the rhythm. David had never seen his daughter look so peaceful and content. In all the medical appointments, all the therapy sessions, all the expensive treatments he had arranged for her, he had never once seen this expression of pure happiness on her face. "Maria," Lily said suddenly, opening her eyes, "can I tell you something?" "Of course, mi amor. You can tell me anything. Sometimes I have dreams where I'm still dancing like I used to before the accident. In my dreams I can run and jump and spin around. When I wake up I get sad because it's not real anymore. But dancing with you makes me feel like those dreams aren't completely gone." David felt tears running down his cheeks. His daughter had been having dreams about dancing, dreams about moving freely, and she had never told him. Why hadn't she felt comfortable sharing something so important with her own father? The answer hit him like a slap in the face, because he had never created space for those kinds of conversations. He had never asked her about her dreams or her feelings. He had only asked about her medical needs and her therapy progress. "Those dreams are real, Lily," Maria replied, her voice full of conviction. "They're real because they live inside you. The dancing you do in your dreams, the running, the spinning, that's your spirit being free. Your spirit doesn't need legs to dance. It just needs music and joy." "Do you really believe that?" Lily asked. "I know it," Maria said firmly. "I see your spirit dancing right now, even in this chair. You move with such grace, such beauty. You have a gift, mi niña. And no accident can take that gift away from you." David watched as his daughter's entire posture changed. She sat up straighter in her wheelchair, her shoulders back, her chin lifted with something that looked like pride. When was the last time Lily had looked proud of herself? David tried to remember and realized he couldn't. All the conversations he had heard between Lily and her doctors and therapists focused on what she couldn't do, what she needed to work on, what might improve with time and effort. No one ever talked about what she could do beautifully right now. "Can we practice that cloud dance again?" Lily asked eagerly. "I want to get really good at it, so maybe someday I can show someone else how to do it." David's heart broke a little more. His daughter wanted to learn something beautiful so she could share it with others. She wasn't thinking about her limitations or feeling sorry for herself. She was thinking about bringing joy to other people. How had he missed seeing this generous, hopeful spirit that lived inside her? Maria began guiding Lily's chair in those smooth, flowing movements again, and this time Lily added her own touches, moving her arms and tilting her head in ways that made the dance uniquely hers. David realized he was watching his daughter create art. Real, beautiful art that came from her soul and her imagination. "You know what?" Lily said as they moved together. "I think Mom would like this kind of dancing. She always said the most important thing about dancing was feeling happy while you did it." "Your mama sounds like she was very wise," Maria replied. "She was the best," Lily said, and for the first time when talking about her mother, she sounded happy instead of sad. She used to say that music was like medicine for sadness. When I felt bad about something, she would put on music and we would dance until I felt better. David remembered those moments. He had watched Anna and Lily dance together in their old house before his business became so successful, and they moved to this huge, cold mansion. Back then, their living room was small and their furniture was simple, but it was filled with laughter and music and love. Somehow, in trying to give Lily everything money could buy, he had taken away the simple joys that had meant the most to her. "Your mama was right about music being medicine," Maria said. "But you know what else is medicine? Feeling loved and feeling special and feeling like you belong exactly where you are." "Is that why I feel so much better when we dance together?" Lily asked. "Sí, mi amor. Because when we dance, you remember that you are perfect just as you are. You remember that you have so much love and beauty inside you to share with the world." David put his head in his hands as the full weight of his failures crashed down on him. While he had been spending thousands of dollars on medical equipment and expert consultations, Maria had given Lily something far more valuable. She had given her back her sense of worth, her connection to joy, her belief in her own beauty and potential. For 3 years, David had approached his daughter's disability like a business problem to be solved. He had researched the best doctors, bought the most advanced equipment, and hired the most qualified professionals. He had attacked her condition with the same methodical approach that had made him successful in business. But he had forgotten the most important thing. Lily wasn't a problem to be solved. She was a person who needed to be loved and seen and celebrated for who she was. David thought about all the money he had spent on Lily's care, the custom wheelchair that cost more than most people's cars, the physical therapy equipment that filled an entire room, the private tutors and medical specialists who came to the house every week. All of that combined probably cost more in a single month than Maria made in an entire year. Yet Maria, with her simple wisdom and open heart, had accomplished what all his money couldn't buy. She had made his daughter feel alive again. The music in the playroom came to an end, and David heard Lily clapping her hands together with delight. "That was the best dance ever," she said breathlessly. "You are getting so good at it," Maria replied. "Tomorrow we can try some new moves if you want." "Really? You'll dance with me again tomorrow?" "Every day if you want to. Dancing should happen every day, don't you think?" "Yes," Lily exclaimed, and David could hear the pure excitement in her voice. His daughter was looking forward to tomorrow. She had something to be excited about, something to anticipate with joy instead of dread. David slowly got to his feet, his legs stiff from sitting on the floor. He needed to get away from here before they discovered him watching. He needed time to think about what he had learned and figure out what to do with this new understanding of his daughter and himself. As he walked quietly back toward the elevator, he could still hear Lily's laughter echoing in his mind. That sound, which had been missing from his life for so long, now seemed to illuminate everything that had been wrong with the way they were living. He had built a perfect prison for both of them, filled with expensive things but empty of love and connection. David knew that everything had to change, starting with him. David barely slept that night. He lay in his king-sized bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of what he had witnessed in the playroom. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily's radiant smile and heard her genuine laughter echoing in his mind. The sound was beautiful, but it also felt like an accusation. How many moments like this had he missed? How many opportunities to see his daughter's joy had he walked away from because he was too afraid, too busy, or too wrapped up in his own guilt? By 5 in the morning, David gave up on sleep and went to his office. But instead of opening his laptop or checking his phone for messages, he sat in his chair and thought about what kind of father he wanted to be. For 3 years, he had convinced himself that providing the best medical care and the most expensive everything was enough. He had told himself that love meant making sure Lily had every possible advantage money could buy. But Maria, who probably made in a month what David spent on a single business lunch, had shown him what real love looked like. Real love meant seeing Lily as a complete person, not a collection of medical conditions. Real love meant spending time with her not because it was scheduled in his calendar, but because he genuinely wanted to be near her. Real love meant asking about her dreams and fears and hopes, not just her therapy progress and test scores. David made a decision that morning that would change everything. He canceled all his meetings for the day. His assistant was shocked when he called at 6 a.m. to clear his entire schedule, something he had never done before unless he was sick. But David knew that this was more important than any business deal or board meeting. This was about saving his relationship with his daughter before it was too late. At 8 o'clock, David walked to Lily's room with his heart pounding, like he was about to give the most important presentation of his life. He knocked gently on her door and waited for her to call out before entering. This was different from his usual routine of quick check-ins where he barely waited for permission. Lily was sitting in her wheelchair by the window, already dressed for the day in a pretty blue sweater that brought out her eyes. She looked surprised to see him, and David realized with a pang of guilt that his presence in her room at this hour was so unusual that it caught her off guard. "Good morning, sweetheart," David said, his voice softer than usual. Instead of standing by the door like he normally did, he walked over and sat in the chair next to her window. This put them at the same eye level, something he had seen Maria do the night before. "Good morning, Dad," Lily replied, looking confused but not unhappy. "Don't you have work today?" I do, David said, but I realized that I have something more important to do first. I wanted to spend some time with you. Lily's eyebrows rose in surprise. With me, are you feeling okay? The question broke David's heart because it showed how unusual it was for him to prioritize time with his daughter. I'm feeling like I've been missing out on something very important, he said honestly. I've been so busy trying to take care of you that I forgot to actually spend time with you. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them unsure how to navigate this new territory. Finally, David took a deep breath and asked a question he had never asked before. Lily, what makes you happy? His daughter stared at him like he had just spoken in a foreign language. What do you mean? I mean, what do you do during the day that brings you joy? What do you think about when you're alone? What do you dream about? David felt nervous asking these questions because he realized he should have known the answers already. Lily was quiet for a long moment, studying her father's face like she was trying to figure out if this was some kind of test. Finally, she spoke. I like music, she said carefully, and I like it when Maria tells me stories about her children in Mexico. And I like looking out this window and watching people walk by on the street. Sometimes I make up stories about where they're going and what their lives are like. David felt tears starting to form in his eyes. His daughter had been creating an entire world of imagination and stories right here in this room, and he had never known about it. Tell me about one of your stories, he said gently. Lily's face lit up with cautious excitement. Really? You want to hear one? I really do. For the next 30 minutes, Lily told David elaborate tales about the people she watched from her window. There was the lady in the red coat who walked by every morning at exactly 8:15 and was obviously a secret agent on her way to save the world. There was the old man with the tiny dog, who she was convinced was actually a prince from a faraway kingdom, who had been turned into a regular person by magic. And there was the young woman who jogged by every evening and was clearly training to run across the entire country to deliver an important message. David listened to every word, amazed by his daughter's creativity and imagination. Lily was a natural storyteller, painting vivid pictures with her words and creating characters so real that David found himself invested in their imaginary adventures. How had he never known that his daughter had this incredible gift? Those are amazing stories, David said when Lily finished. You have such a wonderful imagination. Lily beamed at the praise, and David realized this might be the first time he had complimented something about her personality, rather than her medical progress. Dad? Lily said hesitantly. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you stop spending time with me after the accident? The question hit David like a physical blow. Lily had been carrying this hurt for 3 years, wondering why her father had pulled away from her when she needed him most. David had thought he was protecting both of them from more pain, but instead he had created a different kind of suffering. I was scared, David admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. When Mom died and you got hurt, I felt like I had failed to protect the 2 people I loved most in the world. I was so afraid of failing again that I thought if I just made sure you had everything you needed medically, that would be enough. I was wrong. Lily reached out and touched his hand, a gesture so gentle and forgiving that David started crying. I thought you didn't want to be around me because I reminded you too much of Mom, Lily said softly. Oh, sweetheart, David said, squeezing her hand. You do remind me of Mom, but in the most beautiful way. You have her kindness and her creativity and her amazing ability to find joy, even when things are difficult. I was afraid that seeing those things would make me too sad, but I realize now that they should make me grateful. You are the best part of both of us. From that day forward, everything changed in their house. David started coming home early every day so he could spend real time with Lily. They had dinner together every night, sharing stories and jokes and dreams. David learned about Lily's love for astronomy and her fascination with different cultures. Lily learned about David's work and his own dreams of traveling the world someday. David also had a long conversation with Maria, offering to triple her salary to become Lily's full-time companion rather than just a cleaning lady. But more than that, he thanked her for seeing his daughter's beauty and potential when he had been blind to it. You gave my daughter back her joy, David told Maria with tears in his eyes. How do I ever repay that? You don't repay it, Maria replied with her gentle smile. You pass it on. You keep dancing with her. Keep seeing her light, keep helping her shine. The house that had once felt like a cold, empty museum slowly transformed into a home filled with music and laughter. David had the piano uncovered and tuned, and he hired a music teacher who specialized in working with children with disabilities. But more importantly, he learned to dance with Lily himself, spinning her wheelchair and moving to the rhythm of songs that filled their days with happiness. David discovered that the most expensive gift he could give his daughter wasn't medical equipment or private tutors. It was his presence, his attention, and his unconditional love. And in return, Lily gave him something priceless, the chance to be not just a provider but a real father.